Welcome to Bobby Owsinski's Inner Circle. I'm Bobby Owsinski, and this is a show all about music, music production, and the music business. My guest this week is Vasja Veber, co-founder of Viberate Music Analytics. First of all, do you know what the 8 best social media platforms are to market your music? Well, of course, this changes every year, but for 2021, this is what they've determined. It's Facebook, followed by Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, Reddit, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Snapchat. And here's why. Facebook is so big that it has 60% of all social users. On Instagram, 62% of the users log in at least once a day, but 14% of United States adults haven't heard of the platform, if you can imagine that. TikTok has tremendous user engagement, 52 minutes every day. 41% of users are between the ages of 16 and 24. So if that's the age group that your music is aimed at, that's the place to be. On the other hand, Pinterest, 70% of the users are female. So once again, if you're aiming just to female users, that's where you want to take a look at. 50% of Reddit's users come from the United States. And what I found pretty interesting is 1.4 billion videos are watched per month on the platform. I had no idea. Twitter skews a lot older, 64% between the ages of 35 and 65, and 10 times more engagement on tweets that have videos. That pretty much correlates to every other platform. LinkedIn has higher than average income, and pretty much everyone is college educated. And Snapchat, amazingly, the users open it up 30 times per day. So when it comes down to it, you should use the platform where most of your audience is. There's no sense using a platform just because it's particularly popular. You really want to be where your audience is. But look at these 8 first. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@bobbyowsinski.com. Don't forget about my music mixing primer and 101 mixing tricks programs that will help take your mixes to the next level. Go to bobbyowsinskicourses.com to learn more. Now, we're all familiar with Behringer, the company that makes relatively inexpensive audio gear. As a matter of fact, they probably transformed the audio business and the semi-professional audio business because they were the first to actually have their equipment manufactured in China. Now, in fact, they were notorious for copying other designs really closely and then kind of daring other manufacturers to sue them. There was one case in particular where when you opened up the circuit board, it actually had the name of the original manufacturer on it. Now, all that being said, the company was about to release something that was called the UBXA, and they were going to call it the Behringer Oberheim UBXA. You might remember Oberheim synthesizers. In the 80s, they were really popular, basically because they were really big and fat sounding. People still love their sounds. Since then, Oberheim has gone through all sorts of different owners. The last one was Gibson, and Gibson was actually kind enough to give the trademark back to Tom Oberheim, the founder. Behringer was going to come out with their own brand called Behringer Oberheim, and they actually tried to copyright Behringer Oberheim. Tom Oberheim took them to court, and what ended up happening is the United States Patent and Trademark Office rejected the claim. And what they said was, Tom Oberheim is a famous audio engineer and electronics engineer, well known for designing effects processors, analog synthesizers, sequencers, and drum machines. The evidence indicates that due to his fame in the relevant electronic music instrument industry, the surname Oberheim uniquely and unmistakably points to Tom Oberheim, and a connection with Tom Oberheim will be presumed when applicant's mark is used on its goods. So therefore, it was rejected. So you'd think this would be cut and dried, but it's not. It turns out that Behringer actually won a similar case in Germany against Gibson when they owned the trademark. So now there's actually 2 owners of this particular trademark. And to make it even more complicated, Sequential Circuits came out with their own synthesizer with Tom Oberheim in 2016 called the OB6. And surprise, they just filed for the trademark Oberheim as well. So in the United States, Tom Oberheim owns this. If you look at the Behringer website, they claim they own it. And who knows what's going to happen with this new synthesizer. I don't know anybody that's heard it. Don't know if it sounds good or not. All I know is Oberheim synthesizers, the original ones, really sounded big and fat. If you wanted an analog sound, Oberheim and sequential circuits were kind of the top tier. So let's hope this gets straightened out. Let's hope that Tom Oberheim continues to hold the trademark, at least to his own name. My guest this week is Vasja Veber, who co-founded Viberate, a platform that gives artists important analytics about musical trends, events, venues, and festivals. It makes performing acts' life easier by giving them a better version of an EPK or even a traditional website. Viberate features over 1 million profiles of musicians, venues, events, and festivals, and employs over 100 people all over the world. Vasja is also the manager of techno artist UMEK. In his spare time, he consults with the government of Slovenia in the field of sharing economy legislation. During the interview, we spoke about the importance of clean data, the latest way for artists to get to their fans, pitching his idea to Silicon Valley, and much more. I spoke with Vasja via Zoom from his office in Ljubljana, Slovenia. Let's talk about you and how you got into the music business.
So yeah, I've been in the music business for, I'll say, over 12 years now. So we started as a music management company, and I still manage one of the biggest techno DJs in the world, UMEK. Currently, I think his top 3 best-selling producer on Beatport. On peak of his career, before the pandemic, obviously. He had up to 120 gigs per year. So we learned a lot from that business, and we actually started Viberate because of the problems that we faced as music managers. Because back a couple of years ago, we were investing heavily into online advertising. Back then it was still MySpace and even Google Plus, and Facebook was the hottest network to be on, and we were putting up to $120,000 per year into advertising without knowing how this actually influenced his career. So did he get more popular because of those ads, because of those investments? And there was basically no tool that would allow us to monitor his career and compare him with other similar artists. And that's why we started the startup. So now today we're measuring online popularity for pretty much every musician in the world. So we have roughly 500,000 unique profiles of musicians from all genres. We also have 150,000 venues, 5,000 festivals. Before the pandemic, we used to feature around 500,000 events at any given moment in our database through feeds from Ticketmaster and Eventbrite, Eventeam, all those major ticket providers. This is not the case right now because the events are banned all over the world. And yeah, we analyze around 1 billion data points each day. And then we create all kinds of different charts. Each artist gets their own dashboard where they can track their popularity across different streaming and social channels. We're looking into how they're endorsing each other, how they're following each other. We analyze their events, and it's pretty much, it's really thorough. So Viberate profile, the analytics Viberate profile for the artist is similar to Google Analytics profile of a website. Then we can rank artists according to different KPIs. You can filter charts by genre, by subgenre, by country, or the combination of all of them, and you can create all kinds of really exotic charts. So if you want to know who's the biggest rap star in Mongolia, we can tell you this.
When you first started, though, you didn't start this as a company. You started this just to get more information about your artist, right? Yeah. It was actually a funny story. So it was a pet project. And at the beginning, we started only with electronic music artists because this is our background.
and we set up a very simple website. It was only measuring the followers. Right now, we measure all kinds of data, but then we're just measuring the followers. And we entered the first 1,000 DJs by hand. We just manually entered them. And then we decided to open up the database so fans could add artists that they liked, or artists could add themselves. And in a year and a half, we ended up with 30,000 user-generated profiles. And that was the proof that we're doing something right. And then my wife and I moved to Silicon Valley for 4 months, trying to raise our next round, and we just failed miserably because we were way too early for Silicon Valley. We just had a prototype without any revenue. It was an interesting story, but it wasn't a successful one. So what we did is, because we didn't have any connections in the Valley, so no one was picking up the phone or answering our emails, we just rented a car and we just went crashing offices unannounced. We just went there. Hey, so we're the startup from Eastern Europe. This is our pitch. And at first it was pretty awkward, but then we found out that investors really liked the hustle. They said, this is a breath of fresh air, because we're used to spoiled Silicon Valley startups that would do anything to get at least 3 intros, make us uncomfortable before they come to the meeting. And here we are just storming into our offices during a meeting, just delivering the pitch. So we got a couple of contacts, but we didn't raise around there. So we went back to Europe, and then we managed to get our financing and to get where we are now.
So none of the financing came from Silicon Valley then?
No, not yet.
Not yet. That's the key word.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, first of all, you need at least $100,000 of monthly recurring revenue, and we're still early. So we don't have that. And the second thing is that they are really afraid of investing in anything related to music, because we all know how long Spotify, the biggest company in the music industry, needed to get profitable. So it's a tough business. Although I always say we're a data company that happens to work in music. So I see this as a data business, not so much as a music business.
Well, that's good, because then
no matter what kind of data we get.
Yeah, you can talk about scaling then, if that's the case. That's a good buzzword for them.
Yeah, we get at this a lot. So why don't you measure actors or stand-up comedians? The thing is that you need domain knowledge in order to know what is important in each industry. So in music, of course, streaming services play a major role, which is not the case in the movie industry. But we don't know what's the biggest thing in movie industry. So we want to stick to music.
One of the problems I think that investors have with any music companies, especially if you're talking about streaming, is the fact that the licensing is so difficult and expensive to get. Does that enter into anything that you're doing where there is licensing involved, since it's data from artists and data from private people? Many are public, many are private. So how does that work?
So we don't publish any licensed content. So you cannot upload any tracks or videos. We tap into public APIs. So we're analyzing information about public figures from public sources. So we don't have any kind of private access. The only thing that we have custom right now are the feeds from ticket providers. But this is just a bunch of names from the lineup and information about the venue. But other than that, it's all public. Plus, we let artists claim their profiles. So if you're an artist and your fan adds your profile on Viberate, you can come to Viberate and say, hey, this is my profile, and we're going to verify you through a very simple process. So you have to put a piece of content on one of your official channels, which proves that you control whether you're Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and then we'll let you claim your profile, and then you can have it. Some artists use it instead of their website because it has all the content there. It's automatically sourced from external sources, so you don't even have to update it. And so far we didn't have any problems. We're discussing working with majors. We presented it to a bunch of publishers and labels, and they didn't have a problem with that at all. Most of all because we don't have any copyrighted content.
Is this mostly for artists, or would this mostly be on the label publishing side?
Well, for artists, first of all, they can analyze how they're doing. They can compare themselves with similar artists. We even let them know who the similar artists are if they're not familiar with the whole wider circle.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it is. And then for labels, it's a great tool for A&R, so you can discover new talent. We'll also feature trends. So we'll tell you who are the rising artists in each genre or in each country based on our metrics. And if you're a label A&R and if you want to get new talent before others do, you can simply check who are rising artists in your genre. You can contact them. And the same goes for agents. So agencies want to sign talent before the big guys get them. And this is a great resource for discovering artists. And for promoters, we'll show you, if you're a promoter, let's say from New York, obviously you want to book artists who are popular in New York. And based on geographic data from streaming services, we'll let you know what people from New York are mostly listening to within your genre. So maybe New York is not the best example because it's a huge city. So it's mostly going to sell out for if you book anyone who's even remotely known, you get big chance of success. But for smaller cities, for European cities with smaller population, that's a big asset because it's just if you book a wrong headliner, you can have 100 people in a club that accepts 1,500 people.
Yeah.
And this is because we found out that if it doesn't matter where the artist is coming from, it matters where the fans are coming from, and we now have this information through data from streaming sites.
One of the big problems with any kind of data is how clean it is. If you don't have good data, then nothing matters. So if you have fans that are entering data for their favorite artist, again, how clean is that?
Yeah, that's we actually have the cleanest data set in class. So we don't rely on scraping when building our database. That's why we went to crowdsourcing. And so fans will add, you're right, they will add all kinds of information that is not correct and it's fake, and they're just going to do all kinds of stuff there. And that's why we have a database curation team. We have 20 people in office in Ljubljana, plus we have 100 more across the world, just part-time. And they have a huge system. We're building it for last 4 years that will push the content the contributors are putting online. They will push it to their accounts, and they then check it and clean it and say and check if it's already in the database, if the links are correct. So it's not the most pleasant work in the world, but for some countries that have a lower standard, for those people, this is their main job. So we have a lot of contributors coming out of Venezuela, because we all know that the current economic situation there is really bad, and they found an opportunity to get a job on Viberate remotely, just being music experts. So Venezuela has a lot of music experts now because they're checking information about musicians from all over the world. And the interesting thing is that they get paid in crypto. Although it is a volatile currency, it's still not as volatile as their own country currency. So it's turned out to be a huge success. And we, like I said, we have almost 500,000 unique profiles. This is not the case with most of other services that carry musician databases, because they have a lot of profiles that are just spelled differently for the same artist. And that just makes it impossible to do any kind of serious analysis, because you don't have the data pointing to one single profile. This is one of, if not the highest priority at Viberate, to have the cleanest data.
With so much data coming in, you must be able to spot trends fairly early.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you seeing?
So the interesting thing is that it used to be, a couple of years ago, Facebook used to be the hottest network to be on. If you're a musician, you were building your fan base on Facebook. Not anymore. It's been so. It went slowly from Facebook to Instagram. Fans slowly switched there, and now they're switching to streaming channels, including YouTube. So with the arrival of YouTube Music, a lot of attention switched to YouTube, and kids listen their music through YouTube, and also Spotify. So streaming channels are now becoming the prevailing channel to get to your fans, not social media anymore. We don't know yet about TikTok, because we just started gathering their data a couple of weeks ago, but it's definitely one of the hottest channels right now as well.
Is there a trend, or is there a data point that you find that's particularly useful or interesting that no one else is aware of?
Yeah, we have a special feature. We call it network respect. So actually, our analytics engine can dive into millions of followers an artist has across different channels, and then it will recognize followers that are also musicians, and we have them in our database. And this is how we know how artists are following each other. Why this is important is because this also influences the artist's profile. So I usually say, for example, if you have a small rock band and you're playing your music in your garage, and you're putting your stuff on YouTube, on SoundCloud, you have your channel Spotify, and then all of a sudden you get followed by Metallica on Twitter. So they saw you and said, okay, those guys are interesting. Let's follow them. And this means that you got spotted. This is an extreme example. It doesn't go like that.
Yeah.
But you're slowly building your database. So you have, on one side, you have fans who are following you, and then you have musicians who are following you. And as your career grows, the profile of those musicians is getting bigger and bigger. And this is also something that we include in our calculations. So if you have huge musicians following you, your profile is going to go up. The same goes for venues. So we also profile venues. If a small bar in Hollywood all of a sudden gets hot among big bands, and they just play there for fun because it's a trend thing to do, this venue's profile is going to go up, and then it influences artists back. So, and if you're a small artist and then you play that same venue that just hosted Coldplay the day before, then your profile is going to go up. And this is how the entire database is connected, and the points are calculated.
So in a way, you're measuring influencers. I hate to use that word. Not an influencer in the TikTok sense or the Instagram sense, but it's a high-profile musician that likes a lower-profile musician is an influencer, and you're measuring that.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. Is this difficult for musicians, artists actually, to subscribe to? This sounds like an expensive service.
No, it's actually not it's really cheap actually. So if you're an artist and you claim your profile on Viberate, you get to analyze your own profile for free, but you don't get to see what others are doing. But if you want to also check others, then we have a special tailor-made package for artists that will cost $20 per month. And then you get to analyze yourself plus 50 other profiles, and it has some limited features. So accounts go from free all the way to $100 a month, and that's the top price. And for $100 a month, you get everything that we have. So Spotify analytics, social media analytics, YouTube is coming. Then we have Beatport for electronic music artists, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everything that's popular right now. We try to include it in our metrics.
Is your database machine learning based, or is it just a number cruncher?
Well, it is. The algorithm is actually constantly evolving. It depends on a number of inputs that it gets. So the size of the analyzed network, the number of total likes that we analyze from all artists together, and this is constantly changing. Each second it's changing. So because in order to come up with a single popularity metric that's derived from all those different channels, all those different KPIs, you have to somehow normalize the data. And this is why you have to have learning algorithms, because networks are growing or falling down, or people are switching from one network to another. And that's why you have to constantly change the methods. And it has to be done automatically. So yeah, it is. I usually want to stay away from AI because for me, I mean, there's a clear definition of what AI means, and people are just throwing this word around like it's something. It hasn't been discovered yet, if you ask me. So it is a machine learning, big data algorithm that's analyzing this, and it just requires more and more hardware today, and it's just getting more and more expensive.
Yeah, that's like blockchain. It's the same thing, same term, AI and blockchain. It's like people throw those around.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, blockchain actually, blockchain is a huge part of Viberate. So as I said, our contributors got paid in crypto, and we also have a bunch of blockchain features in the pipeline. We wanted to implement those a couple of years ago, but then we all know that the bubble exploded. So no one wanted to hear about blockchain for a couple of years. And now when Bitcoin is already is again on the all-time high, people are again starting to get to know blockchain and want to know what's behind, what the technology is all about. And the initial idea for Viberate was to create marketplace for artists, like Airbnb for musicians. But in order to populate the platform, because all marketplaces have a chicken and egg problem, so you don't get customers, so you don't get the demand if you don't have the supply, and vice versa. So the idea was to first offer them an analytics service, so they would just use it to discover the entire music ecosystem and the players within it. And then we're going to gradually offer marketplace features. So we already have one profile, the profile of our co-founder, that has a booking button on the website, so you can book them, you can book him through Viberate. And so how we want to include blockchain is, first of all, we want to automate the entire contracting process, and you can do this with smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. And second of all, which I think it's even more important, is we want to offer decentralized escrow, because we all know how it is in the music business. If you're a huge superstar, you want to get paid up front, and your agent is going to take care of this. But if you're a small player without an agent, you represent yourself, you usually get paid after the gig or don't get paid at all. Because if they don't sell enough drinks or tickets, they're going to say, yeah, well, it didn't go well, so we agreed on $1,000. How about I give you 500? And this is why we think that escrow is a really important feature to make the entire thing fair. And at first, we wanted to offer just traditional escrow, and then the regulators in our country said, no, you need a banking license to do that. Then we found out that we would need a banking license for each country that we wanted to operate in. And it would be impossible. It would cost hundreds of millions. But if you do this on a blockchain, because it's decentralized, you don't have a central authority holding the funds, because they're held on a blockchain, decentralized, and we don't hold the funds. But as soon as everything is okay, so you hire me to DJ at a wedding. We agree on a fee. Then you send the fee in the escrow. And after I play your wedding, everything is okay. The funds get automatically released to me, and that's it. So you're protected. So in case I don't show up, I don't get the money. And in case you don't want to pay me, I'll still get the money because it's in escrow. So this is a part of our blockchain features, but right now we have a couple of ideas also around copywriting, and ideas are just popping up. But we want to keep focused right now to finish what we started within the analytics sector, and then we're gonna implement additional features.
Yeah, what I found for a few years, and you know this as well, where every company, especially startups, are saying, blockchain, we have something. Blockchain is going to change the music industry. And it would have been better, just like instead of you saying, well, we have this blockchain feature, we have this escrow feature. And it just so happens the underlying technology is based on blockchain, if anybody cares. So, yeah, that tends to work better.
That's the thing with blockchain. That's why the technology still isn't widely used, because it's not very much user friendly, and people just don't want to use it. Plus, yeah, you're right. Every startup is throwing this word around, and honestly, a lot of features that they want to put on blockchain are working perfectly fine without blockchain. But some of the features, so escrow is in my opinion, is one of the best features that blockchain can offer, because you can just bypass all the regulations, all the licenses, and it's all. I mean, you even don't need those regulations because you don't control the funds. Regulators want you to get all the licenses. They want to vet you because they need to trust you that you're gonna be honest with your users. You're not gonna steal the funds. But in case of decentralized blockchain, even if you want to steal the funds, you cannot do this.
Speaking of government regulators, I read somewhere that you were consulting with your government about the sharing economy.
Yeah, we used to do this. Actually, yeah, sharing economy was just my pet project. And it was just, I wanted to rent an apartment on Airbnb, and then I figured out I cannot do that because all the bureaucracy. So I started writing to members of parliament with my suggestion on how to solve this thing. And all of a sudden, I just created a movement because everybody had the same problem. And you know how politicians are. Once you get in the media, they want to take pictures with you, and they want to be in primetime news discussing a very big problem that people have. So yeah, that was just a small pet project that got really big, and we actually managed to solve a lot of bureaucracy problems here in Slovenia with sharing economy. But we also advised our government on blockchain technology, and actually, our prime minister visited our offices with the members of the government. So in Slovenia, prime minister is like a president in the United States. So he actually runs the country, not the president. Yeah. The president is like the Queen of England. So we hosted the entire government in our offices. We had a lecture about what blockchain technology is, all the traps of blockchain technology, all the buzzwords like we were just discussing. And then they invited us to Davos, to the World Economic Forum with them. So we had a couple of panels there. It was quite interesting, but sadly, 2 months after that, the prime minister resigned, and it stayed with that.
Yeah, that's the problem, I think, everywhere. I mean, artists have that with record labels where you have someone who's your champion and then they're not there and everything kind of stops. So yeah, that happens everywhere, really. What was the most difficult thing for you to get Viberate together? Because this seems like a really big venture. There's a lot going on here. This couldn't have been easy.
Well, at first, when you move from just being a pet project to being a full-time project, that means that you have to put other work aside that brings money to the table. So you need to find financing. And we needed to learn how to pitch to investors we need to do this everything from scratch. And we're at least 10 or 15 years older than an average startup founder. So we're like, what are those old farts doing here? When we went in an accelerator. But yeah, we learned how to do this, and we actually raised our first seed round, our angel round, pretty fast after just one pitch. And an interesting thing is that our biggest angel investor doesn't have a clue about music industry, because he just happens to be one of the most successful nuclear physicists in the world. So he specializes in controllers for particle accelerators, the thing they have in CERN. So he produces controllers for those big things. So it's a completely different industry, but he's a genius. So he's a really smart physicist, and he just knows business. He said, yeah, well, I heard your pitch. I said, this is a good team. I don't know anything about the business, but I see that you guys know what you're doing. So I wanted to invest in you. So yeah, financing was hard, especially the Silicon Valley part. And then when we raised our next round, which was $10.7 million, we needed to expand fast, because at the beginning we were just 5 people in the office, and then we needed to employ a bunch of people, so the entire team. So we moved to new offices in 2 months. So we just ran this completely empty offices, and needed to fully furnish it in 2 months in order to accommodate the team. And we hired, so we went from 5 people to 12, and then from 12 to 60 in just a matter of weeks. And this is maybe an easy task if you live in a big country, but Slovenia is a small country, so we have 2 million people in the whole country. It's almost impossible to get engineers, designers, UX designers, product managers, marketing people, because you have to steal it from other companies. And in Slovenia, we still have a couple of really successful and rich startups. So one of the biggest startups was the creator of the Talking Tom application. If you have kids, you probably know it's a cat that you talk to.
Yeah.
And they just sold the app in billions, and they were full of money. So every good engineer that popped up, they immediately hired them. And it was impossible for us to compete with a salary, because they were just full of money and we're just an early stage startup. So we said, okay, we cannot compete with that, but we can compete with how our offices are going to look like and what we're going to offer. So we invested money into a driving simulator that was just moving as you were driving. We then throw it away because people were throwing up. They were sick because it was so realistic. And we had a shooting range, so with BB guns in the office. So if you needed to vent, you just close yourself in the shooting range. You shot some rounds in target, and it was a nice thing to vent. We have a pool table. Later on, we had to remove the shooting range because we need space for additional people and for a conference room. We threw out the driving simulator, so now we're just like anyone else, but we got the staff that we needed.
Wow, good story. Last question. What's the best piece of business advice that maybe you learned along the way or somebody imparted to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it's actually a cultural difference that as a European founder, you have to know this before you go and talk to anyone from the US. It's one of the biggest cultural differences that I noticed was, if you pitch or if you explain your company to a European investor or a client, and if they don't like it, they're going to tell they don't like it. Or, yeah, well, it's not for me. Good luck with that. I'm not going to be a client, or I'm not going to invest in you because of this and that. If you go to the US, everybody's going to say, well, that's interesting, even if they think it's complete crap. And this is a really important thing. If you're not aware of that, and if you go there, as we did, we thought that everybody likes our idea, so that we're going to be really successful. But at the end, we learned that this is not true. So at the end, our pitch finished with, okay, so how do you like the idea from interesting to here's the check? So interesting being the worst. And we laughed about it, and it was just a fun thing to find out. But yeah, this was because I then met a lot of European founders that came to the Valley, and they were all excited, saying, "Well, everybody likes our startup. Everybody said it's really interesting what we're doing." And I said, "Okay, wait 2 weeks and then try to call them." And in 2 weeks, say, "Okay, yeah, you were right. They're not even picking up the phone."
It's the same thing in the music business. You go see someone at a label, an A&R person, and they'll listen to it. Yeah, that's interesting. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to sign you.
Yeah, exactly.
You can find out more about Vasja and Viberate at Viberate.com. That's Viberate, Viberate.com. Thanks for listening and being in my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@BobbyOwsinski.com. To listen to other episodes of Bobby Owsinski's Inner Circle, go to BobbyOwsinski.com and select the podcast tab, or go to BobbyOInnerCircle.com, or you can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Mixcloud, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, TuneIn Radio, Radio Public, and Podbean. At BobbyOwsinski.com and BobbyOInnerCircle.com, you'll also find a sign-up form for my newsletter and for alerts for new podcasts. This is Bobby Owsinski. I will see you next time.